Do you think music is more valuable if it's thought of as a conversation between an audience and a band, or if it's thought of as a conversation mainly within the band itself?
Do you mean the purpose of it?
Yeah, almost like the creative aspect of it, like in terms of the playing. Like, do you think of the songs as a conversation between you and the audience, or is it a conversation between you as four individuals playing off of each other within the group?
So the only way to look at it, I think, is the audience. Like I was talking this with Mark, the producer. Your entire success is predicated upon people, like other people. Like nothing is really with. I mean, you can write good songs, but like that's not enough. So it has to. Its only focus is to please other people because they are essentially what make you successful. Other people.
At the same time, it's not like you sit though and manufacture something only to please people. You obviously still have to be happy with what you're doing and enjoy the process of making it. But I think it's important to think about the way it'll connect with an audience who are listening to the record or watching it live in a room. Because it's that connection, like Liam says, that's going to build the relationship between you and your fans.
It just has to be real, doesn't it? That's it. It just has to be, and because our songs are things that have actually happened and things that we've heard or whatever, then there's a guarantee that at least somebody will have been through it or experienced it. So, and it's not like we're singing about a hotel on the moon here. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that still resonates a little bit as well sometimes, though.
I think once you're at a certain point where you can release anything and people will buy it, you're afforded more creative freedom. But I think when you're trying to get on the ladder and work your way up the ladder, you have to just sort of be a voice for people.
Does that force you to be more creative, though? If you kind of are trying to exist within those confines of something that you know needs to kind of resonate or kind of fill a certain purpose?
It's only lyrically, though, really, because musically, I mean, as long as it fits within 3.5 minutes, you can kind of do whatever you want. Certainly didn't think it's hindered the creative process. I think lyrically, you think of smarter ways to say things without explicitly saying them. Or at least that's what I try and do. Because I think that's like, again, I'd use Arctic Monkeys as the reference, but their first album done that better than probably any other. It said a bunch of things without really saying a bunch of things. I think that's where the creativity comes into it. Or certainly more of it, anyway.
Does that change when an idea comes to you? Like when a lyric kind of pops into your head, does it now arrive a little bit more perhaps fully formed than it once did, or does it arrive in that way where you're saying something in a slightly smarter way naturally now?
Well, we always look at things being too soft because you always want to, I mean, depending on the song, 95% of our songs are relatively finger pointy and sort of quite angst fueled, if you will. But it's how we can get across a point without it being a bit too nice. It's how do we make this a bit more that's pretty much it. How do we make it more, I suppose, angsty? Again, how do we make a point seem harder, or a turn of phrase, or something?
So what were you asking there? Does the idea come to you already on that different turn of phrase, or does it come? So like I think a lot of the time the phrase will come. I don't know. Say you were talking about like the phrase. If you want to say "I love you" in a roundabout way, would the roundabout way come first, or would you think I want to say "I love you"? How can I say it?
Yeah,
I mean, there's probably an element of both. I think because I'm dead colloquial.
Are you?
Anyways, I try and incorporate that as much as I can in songs. I mean, sometimes it can happen where you have to. Oh, big sneeze.
Into the elbow. Nice.
Yeah, into the elbow though, of course. You have to analyse more. So you put more focus on the storyline as a whole. So where do we want this to go? So we're roughly going in the direction of, oh my god, I really miss you. It's like, well, how do you say that? Or you'll get the line and go,
what am I saying here?
we have to work back for that line. So it's like, right, we've got the line saying this, so how do we preface before that to make it that sort of harsher way of saying it, or more colloquial way of saying it?
It's like a process of reacting, isn't it? It's like you have that pure emotion there, and then trying to make it sound a little bit
it just gets a bit like I just didn't want it to be. I think it would be disingenuous if it was really, really sappy, because I would personally never say it like that. Like, for instance, some of our songs have "I love you" in it, but I would like to think that I would like to talk about a song here that has that in it.
Oh.
Fuck it, I'll just talk about it. So we've got a song called "Save Me," right? Where the lyric is, "I'm choking to get back on track. I love you to the moon and back," right? Now, if it had just been "I love you to the moon and back," that's quite rom-com soft, which there is nothing wrong with, but it's, that's quite a kind of
Absolutely nothing wrong with a good rom-com.
Bryan Adams, look into my eyes, like that song. What is that song again? Everything I do it for you. That's very much in that realm, whereby prefacing "I'm choking to get back on track." And choking is obviously like I'm desperate. It's just another way of saying it, which we thought about. By prefacing it with that, you can then say "I love you to the moon and back," because you would say that. You would say, "Oh, I love you to the moon and back." It's just a throwaway kind of line. Whereas if you were taking it dead seriously and, "I love you to the moon and back," then it ceases to become angsty or harsher, or I just think it ceases to become interesting. But by prefacing it with "I'm choking to get back on track," just the idea, well, I'm choking, like that's something I would say daily. "Oh, I'm choking to get this done. I'm choking for a haircut or X, Y, and Z. I'm choking to do things." So I think there's ways and means you can dance around the point, really.
You almost have to create a space to be that vulnerable in the song. Like, you kind of have to pad it, you have to bookend it either side with something.
Exactly. Because if you were it's a balancing act, because if you were just either really, really angsty and trying too hard to be angsty, then folk are just like, well, this is just trying too hard. Whereas if you get the balance between angsty and well, actually, I probably would say that, then I think you're onto something. I think we've spoke about this before. It's almost just like creating your own universe. Almost, it's like creating your own world, if you will. And because in terms of sound wise, it's very difficult these days to sound revolutionary, if you will, whereby the likes of Strokes or whoever, you just need to hear the music and you would go, "Oh, well, that's obviously the Strokes," or "That's obviously this person." It's hard now with so much music. So I think you can maybe garner a bit more success at that lyrically, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's just my way of thinking on it, but I think
Is part of that just like an internet thing now as well, though? Because, the Strokes weren't particularly doing anything new at the time when they came out either. It was just maybe people didn't have the same access to those reference points to see it so clearly.
In fairness, though, when they did come about, which was 2001 stroke 2, it wasn't an indie guitar band scene. It was a mix of like really pop, like Britney Spears and all that.
But then I guess what's different now is if you wanted to find out more about the New York indie guitar scene, you could.
Oh, no,
whereas if you were living in Scotland
totally.
in 2001, you would only see what's being put to you from that scene,
Totally.
which would be them. So you would think, "Oh, no one else is doing that," but then there actually might be, and they're just not getting out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing, though, because it kind of gives the quality more space to breathe, or greater opportunity, rather. Or not the quality, but it kind of gives it a fairer platform, if you know what I mean.
Hi, it certainly gives, like, it's easier to be influenced by people now, I think.
Because there's so much to take influence
Exactly,
from.
because there is so much. So it's a double-edged sword, really, because there's that much music that you can get caught up in things and you can get lost in things, and it's probably more difficult to stand out now than it was back then, because even when, I keep using the example, but even when Arctic Monkeys came about, that was like LimeWire and stuff like that what was the other site? Was it MySpace?
MySpace, yeah.
So they were like the MySpace band, and all the attention was focused on them, whereby there was probably 100 other bands in Sheffield at the time doing the same thing, Melbourne, who were basically doing exactly the same as the Arctic Monkeys. It just so happened that the Arctic Monkeys obviously got the push.
I think also you've got Turner, who's probably lyricist-wise. There's something a little bit different going on there.
100%. He's just ridiculous at that. a lot of it, certainly I think a lot of the latter ones are just like, well, what are you talking about? But number one party anthem, for example, where there's this whole discrepancy, does he say leather jacket, collar popped like cantina, or does he say leather jacket, collar popped like antenna? Either is very clever, but if he says cantina, that is just unbelievable lyric. Like, I mean, that honestly, how you could think of saying that is ridiculous. So that song's very much the best example of saying something without explicitly saying something. So he's in a different world, him, with his lyrics.
Do you think about what we've just been speaking about there quite a lot in terms of what kind of separates you and what makes your world different and what makes it unique?
I think it's certainly something we're focusing on more now.
Definitely, yeah. Especially like the way we've been working in terms of kind of making the music. We've been making it more like a lot of time before we would work on one song at a time, whereas now we've kind of been working more on bodies of work at once. So then when you're doing that, I think you actively think about, well, how can I make this next song totally not the same as what we've just been working on, type thing.
Because I think for a period of time, didn't mind admitting this, but like we were very much just within the, like you're just an indie, whatever an indie band is now, but like an indie rock band who done the 3-minute big chorus song, and there's nothing wrong with that, and we've been fortunate enough that that's managed to get us to a certain point. I mean, I talk about this all the time, but I think the lines have been blurred now, whereby you didn't have to just be that. Best example of it now is probably the 1975, whereby each single's like just a total curveball, but they still have at this sort of centre of it, it's still the 1975, but they just wear multiple outfit changes throughout their production and their songs, which is just really interesting and keeps people totally on their toes, because people like so many different kinds of music. So I think it's quite an interesting concept to experiment with that, and again for you to say, well, this song kind of sounds like it could fit in this kind of space, and then alternatively this song sounds like, oh, this could fit in here, and it's really hard without showing you examples. The songs that we have to say, look and look and look and look.
And Sam, when you sent me that demo folder over like a while back, every song on that was completely different and kind of existed in a different space. But
yeah,
it was still unified by what we've been speaking about in terms of your kind of songwriting voice, and you can still tell it's a retro riff and stuff, you know.
Which is, I think, what we've actively been trying to consider when we've been making the songs. At the same time, when you've been making them more like compactly, like in a shorter space of time, making more music, it's more fun to try different things than just try to do different versions of the same thing. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
Like,
given that we've been gone down to London, the producer that we work with is very much housed in the pop world, which is right on my street. So there is I mean, he'll pull on the reins a bit if you're starting to get a bit too like, oh well, what about this? And we're always conscious of, there's no point putting someone in for something's sake. Like, there has to be a purpose in it being in there. So it's interesting.
You hear that in this new single. Like, there's not everything that's in that song kind of feels like it's been worked out and perfected to get it as good as it can be, and there's no real space. It's like a bullet. It's like bang, bang, bang the whole way through with every section.
To take an example of that, then, so see the kind of middle 8 section of Checkmate where Liam's kind of doing the
spoken
talking
word,
part, right? That was just an instrumental,
which was like double the length.
And then Mark's kind of like, well, it needs a purpose. Like, there needs to be a reason for that to be there. Otherwise, why is it there? So then we had to kind of think about how we can turn that section into an actual purposeful section rather than just a transition to get to the next bit. Do you know what I mean?
It's like putting a twist on that kind of classic retro breakdown.
Kinda, and when we had, I mean, I always liked that bit anyway. Like that, I always quite liked that. I mean, we knew we were going to keep that in, but it was just how do we make this just a bit more like
something
concise, if you will? How do we make it? Again, how do we make it stand out a bit? And we'd been playing about with the megaphone, which is laced throughout the song. And then Mark was just like, here. Just, and then I was like, all right. And then I think we sort of came up with the concept of putting a spoken thing in, because I kind of wanted to address what I'd been saying previously. So I was like, look, this just happens every weekend, and it's the latest, a new trend, and you sell time you never spend, and all this sort of stuff. So when we went back to the cottage that night, I was just like, right, well, what do I really want to say that can convey what is actually happening? And then we came up with that, and I think it works quite well. So it's with regards to Checkmate, though, I think Sam will agree with me on this. It's probably the closest to what we've done. I mean, it's definitely the closest to what we've done previously. But I think there's elements in it that just sort of indicate that there's got to be more change. And when I say change, I don't mean like we're not suddenly got to become an electro pop band or anything like that. I just mean that there's more, maybe just more thought in it now.
Just trying some new stuff.
Maybe there's just more thought in it now than there perhaps was before.
It feels like, to use, we were speaking about the Strokes earlier, to kind of use that analogy, it feels like if everything you had done before was Is This It, it feels like your room on fire, if you know what I mean. It's taking that sound and kind of just perfecting it and tightening it up and
because I think there is a space for what we're doing. I think there is a space for that. And I've always said we're never going to reinvent the wheel, but you just have to become better than everyone else doing the same thing, really. So that's what we're endeavouring to do.
Are you competitive?
Extraordinarily competitive, mate. I'll give you an example of how competitive I am, right? I played Warzone last night, right? And the last game that we played, I had done about 900 damage or something, and I had no kills, right? And it was the unluckiest game ever.
It's always unlucky.
Right? No, in fairness, I mean, that was unlucky, right? And to be honest, I've only just found the new meta, so I'm on that AUG train now, and it's unreal. But anyways, I digress. So I was saying to my pals, were like, oh, this is like my last game, I'm going off. And I was like, I can't go off. Like, I literally can't turn the computer off until I rectify this. So I had to jump into Plunder and rectify it and kill a bunch of people. So otherwise I would literally have been sat in my bed, like,
Raging.
thinking about how the fuck how did I not kill anyone? So that's how bad it is, mate.
Like, in any aspect of life, Liam is very
mate,
competitive. Ridiculously.
And it's actually a hindrance, because it means I can't enjoy anything, really. Because I just, unless I win or unless I'm fucking performing at like a level I think I should be performing at, then it's just it's no enjoyable at all. So it's a bit of a curse, really.
But would you be as driven as you are if you didn't have that?
Probably no.
What I think is good though is, like, we're not all that.
You balance it out in the band.
Do you know what I mean? So we kind of balance out amongst the four of us, that like competitiveness, and I think that competitiveness or the drive kind of thing has helped us with a lot of key points in our life as a band thus far. Like, I'll be the people, I get slagged for being the opposite of that. Like, when we played Liquid Rooms, for example, the first time, I just would have been happy to do a venue we'd already done. Whereas Liam's more like, we can't just do the same thing as what other people are doing, the same thing that we've done before. We have to try and do the next best thing, the bigger thing, that we need to try this, even if we never felt like it was the right time to do it. It was very much like, we just need to try it. And that's why we would do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you changed now, though? Because when it comes to the kind of social media side of things and the content kind of schedule, which I know you're in control of, you always seem to try and be coming up with fresh ideas and do something different and do something new.
I guess, but then there's not as much risk involved with that. It's harder to fail on that stuff, I think, in terms of like, and if you do fail, it's not like, do you know what I mean?
It's not the end of the world.
It's just risk for reward, isn't it?
Whereas if you book a venue that's bigger than you are at that point, and then the time comes around and you've sold no tickets, then that's like bad. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I put a video out that I've came up with and it underperforms, then
it's not as catastrophic.
Just make another one, and it's fine. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm still like, it depends. It depends on the situation, I guess.
What risk do you think's paid off for you most?
First Liquid Rooms.
Yeah, probably playing Liquid Rooms for the first time.
Because we'd done Mash House in the October, was it?
Yeah.
We'd done Mash House in the October, which was 220, and that had sold out a week in advance, which at the time was, I mean, amazing for us. Like, honestly, we couldn't believe that we'd done it. And I think that was the first time that we were like, I don't know who these people are.
It's not just my mum and dad.
Do you know what I mean?
Anymore,
it's not just your mates,
yeah.
or I mean, like, that was the first time that people were buying tickets, and then it was through the big cartel. We're buying tickets, and we were looking at it, going, I didn't know it.
Because we also put
people?
that show on ourselves. Like, we booked the venue ourselves, done all the ticketing ourselves. Like, everything was just us.
Mm-hmm.
So for it to have that kind of response was just really surprising.
The Liquid
for
Rooms
us.
one.
No. The Mash House.
we actually did.
Okay.
We did do the Liquid Rooms one as well, though.
You did that yourself as well.
So then it was a case of, once we'd done Mash House, what Sam was talking about there is he was reluctant to do Liquid Rooms, and I was saying, like, we have to do Liquid Rooms now, because either we do Liquid Rooms and it sells out and we break out of the mould, or we didn't, but it's kind of now or never, that, because otherwise we would have just done another 200 cap and maybe it sells out again, and then you just go around in a circuit, which loads of bands do. So having the bottle to go, right, let's just book the Liquid Rooms. No, because it really could have fucked us though, that. Like, it really could have been like, we try and do it, we sell half the venue, we maybe sell 300 tickets or something, and then we're end up with egg on your face. But I mean, it was only 5 months later. It was February the 23rd that we done it.
24th.
No, it was the 23rd. It was Kieran's birthday.
So it was, which is the 23rd. I knew that.
So, and it sold out, and that was another thing. We just booked it ourselves. We ran it, and
we got
it was amazing.
So we went to Propaganda, the like club night, and we were saying to them, the guy that was running that at the time, like, we want to do this. Can you like help us get the venue? We'll put your name on the poster and do like an after party thing and all that. So it was good. It was like a big undertaking to like do, but it paid off.
But that's definitely what allowed us to kick on, because that was sort of the first like time anyone would have seen us. I mean, if you hadn't have seen us before and you came to that show, I mean, the Liquid Rooms for an unsigned band like that.
Yeah, we didn't have management,
like
or
nothing, no agent, no management, nothing at all, just the four of us. So to come and see a full Liquid Rooms for an unsigned band would have been like, wow. And it was the first. I mean, obviously, I say the Mash House was like, oh, I didn't know any of these names, but I mean, that Liquid Rooms one was literally like, well, we definitely didn't know 600 people. So
Kieran's still convinced that they only came.
I know, because it was his birthday. He's a slave at him though. But that allowed us, that risk that we took there was definitely the biggest one, because everyone then had to pay attention. Like there was no denying what we'd achieved. So, and then miraculously, agents start getting in touch, managers start getting in touch. So that really got the ball rolling for us. So that was definitely the sort of highest payoff, if you will, risk wise. That one.
Musically, do you feel that some of the songs that are coming up soon this year are kind of risks?
Yeah,
100%.
What does that kind of do for the feeling you have looking? Let's talk 2019 compared to this year. How do the feelings at the beginning of the year differ to now, when you kind of have this feeling that you're going to be taking some risks this year in a slightly different way?
The thing I think that's different is we have a plan this year. We have those risks are in place. Like, whereas 2019 we were very much, our way of working was we would make a song, we'd put a song out. Once it's out, we'd think, right, let's write the next one, make another song. Whereas we very much have spent the time, and obviously lockdown was shit, but with having that time to be able to go and plan and make music ahead of a year, that we can say, right, we're going to start here and this is the end goal for the year, and we've plotted out the singles, the changes, whatever's happening the differences in the music. I think that's like a different thing between 2019 and now. And like I was saying earlier, before it's all released, we've had a load of music made. It's made the creative process different, and taking the risks, I think, has been a result of that, of the way we've made them, I think.
Yeah. And I think what you were saying earlier about that Liquid Room show in regards to kind of timing and how important timing was, and it's kind of about just hitting it on that sweet spot. If you have these 5 singles planned out, that allows you to kind of have more control over that. You can make sure that you're landing that timing and sticking the landing so that it's going to hit with the impact it needs to and arrive at a moment that feels right for it.
Totally. That's obviously a bit up in the air in terms of like everything going on, because usually you would, like, Chemistry came out at the same time we played Liquid Rooms, for example, like that day or the week before. Whereas it's hard to plot that now in terms of the shows, the live side of things. But it's good that we have that the music in place, so when we can start putting these other plans in place, we'll link up. It's exciting. I'm looking forward to everyone hearing what we've been working on.
Yeah, although it's been a year where you've not been in the kind of spotlight as much, it almost sounds like it's been a year where it's had more progression than any other.
Absolutely, yeah.
Had to be, though, because, I mean, we could have just not done anything. I think a lot of bands will be in the position whereby, like, they'll not have done anything, really. Like, they'll not...
It's hard, because it was like, especially the first half of the lockdown, it was like, we'd been writing and stuff, but we didn't have a new song to put out. We didn't have anything to push, and it was like you had to pull engagement with
nothing,
fans,
really,
from nothing, and it was really hard. And I think that's a hurdle that certainly some artists and bands might have fallen at in terms of this last year. So it was trying to keep up that, but then when we had the opportunity to go in and make music, like you say, I think it's definitely been one of our most productive on that side of things.
Did this song start life in the Notebook in the same way as the others?
It did, actually. It was the first. Believe it or not, we've actually had this song for ages, and we never thought of it, or certainly I never thought of it. I don't know if Sam's the same, but I never thought of it as being like this song. I never thought of it being... I mean, I didn't think it was a bad song, but I thought, it's alright. But I kind of have lost perspective a bit on songs. Maybe a few years ago, I could write a song and be like, oh, this is a really good song. Whereas now, I'm like, it's just a song, and I'll let other people decide if it's any good.
Is that because you're writing more?
Probably, aye. But just... I think because we're experimenting with the production more now, it's harder for me to hear how the song will sound like. Whereby before...
In the early stages.
Whereby before, it was like, well, I know it's got to be heavy guitars and this. Like, I knew it was got to be this type of thing. Whereas now, it's like, now we're bowing to what the song demands rather than what we would normally implement on it. So if the song requires a drum machine and it requires a body synths, then that's just what it requires. We're not trying to change it to be like, oh well, it has to have these guitars in it and it has to have. And we're just whatever the song needs, the song gets. Because then I think you're just. I mean, I don't know what I sound disingenuous here, but I think you're then true to the song. Which sounds like me being a fanny, and like loads of folks say, but it's very much like that now. So I'm finding it difficult to initially hear, because I'll start on an acoustic guitar or the piano or whatever, and I'll hear, well, it could be this, but then you're like, well, actually, I mean, it could be anything like playing this. So it's then deciding, well, what kind of hat does this wear? I mean, at the core of it, there'll obviously be the guitars and bass and drums and all that stuff, but it's just what kind of outfits will it wear? So I think it is more difficult now.
Is that what's almost making it feel like more of a risk as well? The way that you kind of have to completely give yourself to the song. And although you're still in control, you're almost not, because you're doing what the song demands rather than what might be a retro video club structure that you would usually implement.
That is fair. I mean, to be honest with you, I absolutely love the idea of trying these things. And what's worth stressing is, it's not like we're trying things that you would get in like metal or anything like that. It's actually, I say that, right? Because Mark's dead poppy, it's just because they're just pop songs anyway, and they always have been, and they always will be. So now it's just steering head on into that and just saying, well, it just has to have this in it, doesn't it? And it has to have this, and no trying to hide away from anything. There's an element, like, I would always say, like, I didn't think we're a cool band, right? I didn't think that you could listen to our songs and go, oh, they're cool. I think with this newer stuff that we're doing, it's not even a necessarily like, oh, we're more cool now. It's just like, I think anyone that would listen to them would go, fair play for just trying totally different stuff.
That's a review to put on it. Fair play, Liam Allison.
Maybe not even if they didn't like it, just respecting it and going, well, actually, fair enough. That's for an indie meat and potatoes guitar band. That's quite a move.
You were saying a minute ago as well about kind of doing what feels right for the song. Mm-hmm. Do you have the narrative of the song mapped out beforehand? What's guiding you when you're doing that and doing what feels right for the song? What are you kind of looking at and trying to build toward?
Just a big pop hit. Really? I think for me, good songs, right? So if you think about like really good songs, they could wear really any hat because ultimately the song's just really good. Anyways, and it's
that thing that if you play it with a acoustic guitar and a vocal, it's still a good
if you
song.
play it with an acoustic guitar, like if you play "Sweet Child of Mine" with an acoustic guitar, it's still a good song. And if you play, "I Will Survive,"
did not expect you to pick that as an example.
If you play "I Will Survive" with an acoustic guitar, it's still a really good song. So that's ultimately at the core of everything that we've ever done and ever will do. That's like the thing. So if I played it on an acoustic guitar and sung it, would it be a good song still? So that's kind of what steers it. And then for there, it's just a case of saying...
I think it, like, one thing as well is, like, the type of song. So, like, for example, like, it's such a mundane example, but, like, reverb. Liam hates reverb, right?
Well, but when we do, I don't hate reverb.
When we do, like, a slower, more ballady song, he's becoming more... It needs some reverb. So we'll give it what like, do you know what I mean? That's the type of song that it is what will help guide where it goes. Do you know what I mean? Like, we used to, I think, have a similar idea of what we wanted the vocals to sound like across the board, or what we wanted the guitars to sound like across the board. Whereas now, if it's a certain type of song and it doesn't feel like it needs what we would initially think we want to put on it, then it doesn't get it. I think that's fair to say.
Mm-hmm. And it's very much, believe it or not, it's very much just parking your ego at the door, right? And saying, well...
Massive car parks.
When he says, oh, they like reverb and that, my reasoning for that is, right, I think you lose bags of character out of your guitar playing, out of your vocal, when you drown things in reverb, because then it just sounds like anything else, really. Unless there's a unless there's a distinct because I just like to, like, there's just far more character for me in like Dire Straits guitar playing and get like the Strokes guitar playing and stuff than there would be in, and I'm not saying it's bad, but I always talk to Sam about it. It just becomes far more passive music if nothing is spiking my interest. So
it's too safe.
If something's drowning in reverb, if a song's drowning in reverb and the vocals are drowning, then I'm just like, well, this just sounds like a big mush. Really, it just sounds like a big mushy song. Whereby, I mean, and you can have reverb in a song like Sam's talking about. We have a song that it was like, well, this just has to have this, but there's things on top of it that are really spiky that grab your attention. It's not just everything's just sort of washed in this reverb. It's.
I think it's funny. Like, we definitely across. I mean, mainly me and you have got pretty different opinions on music that we like in terms of what we would listen to if we were just in the car or whatever.
Aye.
But then it definitely becomes, because we are making one song, you end up with this mix of like different things that we both.
And I think the producer, Mark, like, he's a good adjudicator between saying, well, it needs this, and it needs this, and it needs this. So you didn't end up, it never ends up being like, oh, well, it just ends up being what it is. Like, it just is that, so ergo it has to be that. All the music I listen to, like Mikey, I'll put like a playlist on and just zone out and work away and stuff. And I just can't ever imagine being able to do that, because every song that I listen to, or I like to think that every song that I listen to is just so like active. So it's actively wanting me to listen to it. It's not just like a passive sort of song that I could put in the background and no listen to. And that's probably down to virtually everything I listen to being massive pop hits and that. Like, I didn't really listen to a lot of bands anymore. Like, I listen to...
You're sounding like the guy from Maroon 5.
There's no bands anymore.
Oh, no, he's a rocket, him, eh?
That was the first CD I got. Do you know that?
Maroon 5, Songs About Jane.
Songs About Jane, it's great.
Brilliant
it's really
album.
Great
really
album.
Good,
Shame there's just no bands anymore.
True. Like, for instance, right, some of my last saved songs are Who Knew by Pink, right? And We Didn't Start the Fire, Billy Joel, Strong Enough by Cher, again, that, like, Mess Around by Ray Charles and that sort of stuff. Always on My Mind by Pet Shop Boys.
All the classics.
Like, they're too good not to just listen to and sing along to. Do you know, for me, like, they're laced with so many things that you can't help but start singing them or sort of become involved in when you're listening to them. So, listen, I say that against reverb and stuff, but it's not that I have an issue with reverb. It's just that I think you have to be very smart in how you use it, because otherwise you'll sound like nothing, really. You'll just sound like any other band that could whack on a lot of reverb. That's just my thinking on it, mate. It's not that I didn't like it, and I do use it a wee bit on vocals, and I use it on guitar and stuff, but you just have to be smart, I think, in how you use it. If you're washing your whole song with it, anybody could do that, couldn't they? And I just think it hides a lot of character, and it hides a lot of the details and folks' guitar playings. Like, could you imagine Mark Knopfler drowning his guitar in reverb? It's like, imagine Sultan's Swing drown in reverb. It just wouldn't work, would it? I think there's a time and a place for it. I think that's what I'll say. There's a time and a place for it, mate.
It's got a long point to get to. I don't like reverb.
Time and a place. It's not that I didn't like it, I'm telling you. It's not that I didn't like it. It's just too many folk rely on it.
I believe the initial point of that question was, we have different opinions on things, and the end result is a mixture of those.
Exactly.
When you listen back to a mix, at what point do you stop hearing it as either side of your opinions and it just kind of coalesces with the song? Can you get to a place of that kind of emotional detachment so you can get the perspective?
Nowadays, because I'm just like, well, if it sounds good, then it sounds good, doesn't it? That's very much where I am now. It's like,
I'm definitely less so.
Ken.
I find it harder to be won over on, like, even if it suits the song, I'm more difficult to win over on something I don't like.
So basically what he's saying is he finds it harder to park his ego in the car park. That's what he's saying, basically.
But, like, I don't know, it's weird, especially with like mixes and things, to bring it to this single. I think it's strange, because usually when I get a master back or mixes and stuff, from the minute we get our first mix to the song comes out, it's usually all I would listen to all the time. Like, when I'm in the car, I'll have it on.
I'm the same,
about.
in fairness.
But I've not really been in the car or been out walking about or doing anything, so it's a different in this one, where I've not really listened to it and the approach that much, whereas usually it's pretty like intense on it all the time until eventually it's out there, and then it's like, nothing I could do, it's not ours anymore, it's gone type thing. But whereas
that's when you get the closure.
Yeah, kind of. Like, so I always say, like, I'll never listen to our songs that are out once they're out, but it's literally all I'll listen to before they come out.
When was the last time you heard something like Psycho then? Like the recorded version of it?
I honestly couldn't tell you.
In fairness, I'm actually the same. I didn't listen to listening to the band really.
Kieran's had us as his top artist on the Spotify rap thing for like the last 3 years.
Listen, I heard Josh Homme talking about it on Joe Rogan actually, and he was saying, he's like, well, why wouldn't I listen to my band? It's like, they're my favourite band. It's like, they should be your favourite band because you're making music that should be a mixture of everybody that influences you. So it should be like, oh my God, this is a mixture of everything that I love, so it should be your favourite thing. And I do get his point. I
listen very analytically to our songs, I would say. That's why I would listen to them before they come out, because if there's things I want to like change, or I mean, obviously it's too late now, even like to change things if it's mixed and mastered and stuff, but you still always listen to it with an opinion or coming up with things to do with it, like ideas for videos or artwork or whatever. Before it comes out, I find myself constantly thinking about all these other aspects of the song. Whereas once it's out and it's kind of like done and there's nothing else I can do, it's like, well, I just never really find myself. Obviously, we play them, so you listen then.
I think now I'm very much coming more round to the idea that people just take things for what they are. So I'm well aware that we'll put everything under the microscope far more intensely than the fans will. And ultimately, something either sounds good or it doesn't. Because I was like Sam. I was very much like, oh, this needs to be louder and this needs to be heavier and that. But ultimately, if it sounds good, like my pal Raph told me that. He was like, if it sounds good, mate, then it just sounds good. And he's right. Again, if it sounds good, it sounds good. Again, there's no really any way to dress that up. It's just, again, if it sounds good, it sounds good, and that's it. People will just take it for what it is.
Let's say that again, just one more time for us.
Sounds good, it sounds good.
The Josh Homme one's an interesting one, to the point you were making at the start of that, because, I don't know, I'd be interested to know how he hears it. Like, if he has managed to get to a point where he just hears it as a song and he's divorced himself from all of the personal experiences that he has had surrounding it.
Well, Joe Rogan never asked him that, unfortunately. But I understood his point. I mean, I didn't listen to the band, really. I mean, obviously, if we're making new songs, then I'll listen to them. But like, I'll not listen to the back catalogue, if you will.
I think
listening to that.
It goes back to the point you were saying about the conversation between you and the audience. And before you put it out, you're thinking about that conversation. When you put it out, it's almost like your side of the conversation. So in them listening to it, it's like their side now. And then the only other times that I'll listen to the old stuff or the music that we have out is when we're playing it. But again, that's then in a direct connection with the fans. And it's another conversation.
Like the show is a call and response.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know, I just think there's always like, you have it and they have it, and then you both have it in this setting type thing. There's never a time after I've given it over to them that I want to have it back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's done. Last time we spoke, when we did that interview at Transmit, I remember you said something, Liam, where whenever you put a character into a song, you kind of learn something about them, or you get a slightly new perspective. You'll learn something about the characters that you're dealing with, the external ones, other people. Mm-hmm. On this song, what did you learn about the people you were talking about?
Good question. Rather than learning something, I think I've just continued the world, if you will. So for instance, the terminology that we use in this song, and it's kind of to touch on like the colloquial lyrics again, it's the terminology that we use. So like, I mean, the lyric in the song, you see the remnants of your mates, baby gates, wifed up, checkmate. I could imagine the character in Famous, or I could imagine the character in 3 AM or saying that, and likewise would Save Me and stuff. I could imagine him saying that, or
it's like Trainspotting. Pop up another story.
Kinda, I could imagine them using the same terminology and stuff, which is to be expected, I suppose. If you write a bunch of songs and but I think more than anything, that's probably what I've learned for it. Like I think it was important to maintain that, because maybe subconsciously people can kind of put them in this space. All these songs, like I always talk about creating that universe for your songs to exist in your terminology, and really great bands do that. So I'd like to think that we managed to maintain it, keep the lyrics really grounded. I think ultimately that's where it stems from. If your words are really grounded, as with all the other songs that we have, I think they're very grounded as well, and very much housed in the real world, then you can keep that continuity throughout, even though the music will maybe change and stuff. You always have that strand running through all of them.
Does that make it easier for you to develop the song as well, Sam? Like when you kind of bring it in, if it's got that kind of grounded element to it?
I guess, like, because there's always that element of it that's running through everything, so you know that's like the Retro Video Club part almost. So then whatever way you decorate it, I think it takes the pressure off building a song up, because no matter the way you dress it, it'll still have the element running through them all. Do you know what I mean? So it'll still be a Retro Video Club song, even if it's, like Liam used the term, wearing a different outfit or whatever. So even if you dress it up differently, there's still got the strains that are running through them all.
Yeah, you have those elements that are going to keep it consistent no matter what.
Yeah, totally.
That's just a personality thing, really, isn't it?
I think
that's you
want
to try new things, but you don't want it to sound like a different
band.
You like a band because you like the band. You don't want to listen to their next single and it just sounds like a different band. You still want those elements to carry through all of your music, even though you're going to want to try new things and new styles or whatever.
Personality is a good term there, because it's like the reverb thing as well. I think that can take away a lot of personality for the musical side of a band. And I think, again, lyrically, if you can keep that songs that are grounded and that talk about real stuff and everyday terms and all that kind of thing, then you can impose your personality. Because anybody that knows me, or I like to think anybody that knows me, would know that I would say oddie things, and that's how I would say them. And so, I think that's what maybe people can attribute. That's where people attribute meaning, because ultimately all these songs are for people that are just like us, really.
I mean, at the end of the day as well, I always say, if it's good,
it's good. It's good. I'm saying exactly, Sam. You're right, Ken. So, ultimately these songs are just for Ken, for boys and girls like me. So,
do you ever hear yourself saying things that you think I'd like to put that in a song?
Oh,
with what you're saying, that it feels so tied to your voice. Yeah.
Like I would say, I'm choking to, and Sam will back me to the hilt on that. Like I would say that. I would say, oh my god, choking to do this, or choking to go to the pictures, or like I would just say that. I think it's. I just think the things are what get your personality across in songs. I think that's what.
I think it's
important.
To go back to the question, I think it's good when there's an element that runs through a personality that runs through them all, because it allows you to be more creative with other elements of it. That you can experiment with different things.
Is it because it takes the pressure off?
Well, you don't need to worry about it sounding like a different band if you've got a strain that's still in it. Obviously, it's always just going to be us making it anyway. So if you've got some sort of constant, it allows you to try other things with other parts that don't have to be so constant. Do you know what I mean? And it can still sound, and it does still sound, and it is still the same band. Do
you analyse like your songwriting and your music in that way, where you look at it and try and identify what are the constants that are linking all of this together? Or is it just something that's innate that you can kind of trust to happen naturally?
I think it just happens.
It just happens, mate. I never look at it as anything other than...
Like, we don't sit and think, oh, we need to put this in because we need to have that link from here, and needs to always have that in it. It just kind of naturally, I think, happens when we work on stuff.
What part of the process is fueled by constant thought? When do you start looking at it and trying to identify things? Does it happen at any point?
I don't think it... No, honestly don't think it does. I think... my singing style is always the same. The way I'll deliver certain words is always the same. It's just, I never think about anything. Like a lot of it is honestly just subconsciously. It just happens. And as one of the things, if you're true to yourself and you're true to the song, then it'll just happen. But
you said that a couple of times.
I know, but I listen. Anybody that kens me kens I would never say shit like that. But if you just take things for what they are, if you try and look at, I mean, it's interesting about talking about looking at a subjective thing objectively. If you can look at it objectively, and what Mark's good at is he'll look at it objectively and say, well, look, it needs to have this, it needs to have this. Then everything can just kind of be subconscious. Kind of if he's being conscious, then everyone else can be subconscious. So I think that's how it works.
We were speaking earlier as well about the way that you'll frame something. What was the example you used? "I'll love you to the moon and back."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll frame that, within the context of your kind of the way that you would naturally speak. And you can see the way that you would naturally speak in yourself. Can you see that romantic side of yourself in yourself as well?
Oh,
or is that more...
Absolutely. Absolutely there. No, listen, I think it's a balancing act between... naturally, I think one of the reasons that people really responded with Noir is because it hit that balance of... It was colloquial, kind of phrases like ducking and diving and... But then it also hit I could never ever despise you, because in the general terms, like, now that I'm getting over you, I'm missing you under me and all this kind of thing, which is just, I'm missing a bit of that, so I think in that sense that's how people are able to relate to them. So I think I try not to think about it too much. It's like we're talking about it does kind of is a bit subconscious now, but I'm aware that they have to say a certain thing a certain way, and getting the balancing act between being quite soft at times, and you can be quite soft at times, and you can be quite gentle at times, but there has to be certain elements that stick a knife in you, that kind of snap you back for kind of being lulled into this sense of, oh, this is a really nice song. Like, so I think a lot of them they're almost like working class love songs, kind of. Or that's how
like The Enemy.
Kind of, like a bit like that. I mean, they're massive influence, specifically that first album. Like, honestly, such a big influence on me, and it's very much just that. I mean, if you take "We'll Live and Die in These Towns" or "This Song Is About You," I mean, fuck, the words in these songs are just unbelievable. And I think that's why people love them so much, because they strike a balancing act of the sort of the universal, this song is about you, and it's all encompassing, but then it hits you with the finer details of being in a cold flat and not having enough money to put the water on and all these things. So it's very much a balancing act.
I want to come back to a little bit, not to just touch on it one last time, but the characters of the songs and how you were saying there that when you say something that's pointed towards a person, it sounds like something that you would say. Because I was reading the other day, I think I was watching an interview with a writer who was saying that all description should describe the describer more than it describes the described object or person, if that makes sense. Is that something that you feel is applicable to your songwriting? Can you get more of a sense of you when you're speaking about something else?
Well, I suppose you'd need to be the judge of that, wouldn't you? Or anyone that listened to the songs, really. Yous would need to be the judge of that, I think.
Well, Sam, can you see that?
What, can I see a sense of Liam even when he's not talking about himself?
Yeah, do you think you get more of a sense of Liam when he's talking about someone else than you do about the person he's speaking about? What can you tell about him when he's... I mean, look at this song, for instance, where you're speaking about, you got the whole kind of high school... Speaking about, running into people from high school when you're in town. What can you kind of tell about Liam from him saying that in this song? I
think with this song, it's it could be Liam talking about Liam at the same time as it could be Liam talking about someone else.
I hadn't thought about it like that.
Do you know what I mean? Obviously, you can tell from the way he says things that it's Liam saying it, and you do get that impression of it's him talking. But with a song like this song specifically, I think it's more, because it's more generally about life, it could apply to him as well. He could be talking about himself, even if he's not.
Yeah.
Nah, they're. I always used to tell my old missus that they're. So I was like, "Oh, who's the songs about?" I say, "It's about everybody." They're not about anybody. They're about everybody.
That's kind of what I was saying there, though. Whilst it is, you don't really get a sense of him describing anyone in particular in this song. I think he's just describing a lot of people.
What's interesting, and I mean, what I'm conscious say is there is a song coming that I think you would really have to know me, but you would be able to say, well, this could be about this person, or certainly a lot of it could be about this person or whatever. So, but I think the beauty of good songs, if I can call them, if I have the right to call them good songs, is
Part your ego at the door.
that they are they can be about anybody. You can listen to Nothing Compares to You and you can go, God, she's right. Like, I think just good songs have that universal element in them. I think it's up to other people to attribute whether they can see me in them. I mean, I think you definitely can see me in them, but other people will be able to tell you more than I will.